Welcome to First Parish. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation of people with diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your journey, you are welcome here. May this be a place of rest and restoration for you. I'm Elenita Muniz, happy to be welcoming you to the service today with our interim music director, Kaiza Fern, and our guest preacher, Reverend Aaron Stockwell-Wiseman. Reverend Aaron is the senior minister of the First Parish of Framingham, Massachusetts, a graduate of Lesley College and Andover Newton Theological School. He has served UU congregations in Massachusetts, Texas, and Kansas. He enjoys cooking, hiking, and the spiritual practice of Lectio Divina. He and his wife Lizzie live in Framingham and share their home with their dog Knox. Welcome, Reverend Aaron. Our services are recorded and available on our YouTube channel midweek. We ask that all over the age of 4 mask while in our service, and we also ask that all wear their name tags or a sticker name tag in an effort to be more welcoming. Please silence your cell phones. However, we do welcome and celebrate the noises, movements, and mirth that little ones bring to our service. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, a special welcome. Are there any visitors who would like to introduce themselves this morning? Well, any who are here and silent, welcome especially. If you'd like to learn more about First Parish Brewster, please fill out a welcome card found in the back of the pew in front of you and place it in the offertory basket. A big welcome to people streaming at home. We're glad you're with us. And welcome to all on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. In community news announcements, first of all, a reminder that our stewardship campaign is ending. The budgeting process starts tomorrow. If you have not yet turned in a pledge card, Tavia Asala has some right up here. Please be sure to do that. Our plans for the summer include SNOUU, or Summer's Not Over at UU Brewster. And it's a program that will be offered for children and youth ages 4 to 12, staffed by First Parish volunteers and older CIT teenage staff. Led by our Lifespan Religious Education Director, Twinks Hastings, and a volunteer team made up of Laura Gill, Susan Smith, and Christine McDowell. This is an initiative that has grown from our Children Youth Ministries Committee, the Financial Futures Tiger Team, and the Social Justice Committee. This is in answer to an acute need that families on the Cape have expressed for summer programming and childcare for those 2 forgotten weeks of August 21st and 28th. We look to fill that need for local families. It takes a village. Please join in the fun. If you can give an hour to work with these kids, that would be great. Check in with Twinks. Many adults are stepping up to give some time and energy to teach, assist, and care for the kids. We need you for this all-church social justice project, where we will turn love into justice. Please speak or email Twinks for more information. Building a Bigger Table will host a lasagna dinner in the parish hall with accompanying discussion of fake smiles and lasagna. Christine Jenkins' wonderful story of her shepherding Rwandan refugee teenagers through their first years here in this country. Her story unveils the work that Building a Bigger Table members are doing in assisting asylum seekers and refugees from many countries as they begin again in new settings, with new housing, a new language, and a new community. We encourage you to join Building a Bigger Table on Saturday, April 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. Christine will be selling her book for $15 with the proceeds to benefit Building a Bigger Table. And there will be a free will offering welcomed for the dinner, which will consist of vegan, vegetarian, and meat lasagna, salad, bread, dessert, and non-alcoholic drinks. Please sign up after the services in the parish room for the next 2 Sundays. We welcome you with open arms as we welcome people running for their lives. On Tuesday, March 28th from 5 to 7 p.m., we're excited to be hosting Zachary Hunter from the American Heart Association, who will be offering CPR training. You have the option to do the training without certification for $50 or with a certificate for $75. Spaces are limited on a first-come, first-served basis. 436,000 people die in the United States alone every year from sudden cardiac arrest. And CPR, especially if administered immediately, can double or triple a person's chance of survival. Registration details are in the order of service and on the website and in the weekly angle. Next Sunday, you're invited to a service led by Chuck Medansky and Wilderness Fairchild, where they will invite you to learn about the surprising gifts of conflict, personal, interpersonal, and organizational. And I can say, as a person who's asked Chuck Medansky to mediate for me on more than one occasion, it's bound to be informative. Following the service today, everyone is invited to the parish room for mask, optional coffee and conversation, or you're welcome to socialize here in the meeting house with masks on. Welcome to our service today. It is so good to be together.
Let your little light shine, shine, shine. Let your little light shine all night long. 'Cause there might be someone down in the valley trying to get home. Let your little light shine, shine, shine. Let your little light shine all night long. 'Cause there might be someone down in the valley trying to get home. When
Thank you, choir. Well, it's spring at last. Even though I'm not exactly dressed for spring, I have to go to a hockey game after this, so. And at our house, that means it's time for bike racing. Well, there's March Madness too, after the bike racing, yes. I am talking about professional bike racing, like the great stage races, the Tour de France and the Vuelta de España, and one-day classics like Liège, Bastogne-Liège. From now through the summer, you will find Judy and me glued to the television, watching 200-odd cyclists weaving through the countryside of France, Italy, Australia, and Spain at 100+ miles a day, anywhere from a single day to 21 days in a row. Bike racing is a strange addiction. Sometimes it is a little like watching paint dry. But we live for those moments of intensity, the dramatic sprints, the mountain climbs, and the mountain descents, which are especially terrifying if it's raining or snowing, or if we have the TiVo recording in fast forward. We have our favorite teams and our favorite riders, and we root madly for them, frightening the dog and the cat. The cool things about those long, boring periods when the peloton, the group of cyclists, is riding along at 40 or 60 kilometers per hour beside the River Rhone, or through the sunflower fields or the vineyards, is the scenery, which is such fun to see. Of course, the cyclists don't see any of it, because they're watching the road, trying to avoid crashes, and just trying to get up the mountains. But we, as TV spectators, have the advantage of the helicopter's perspective. We get to see the palaces of Louis XIV, and the ruins of the medieval castles, and all the chateaux, and all the natural beauty of those countries. One of the things I noticed particularly last week during the race from Paris to Nice, which is an 8-day race, was all the hilltop towns. I've seen them before, but this time I was struck by the construction of these towns. They are poised on top of little mountains, it's the only way I can describe it, that rise directly out of the plains created by the river. In the midst of a broad valley, suddenly there's a hill. And I'm not talking about a gentle sloping hill that you can wander up. I'm talking a mountain with cliffs. I mean, it's short. It's not like the big mountains they climb, but it's not like a hill like we would imagine. These are sharp, projecting, granite-sided hills with at least one side that is a cliff. And perched on top is a town of stucco or stone houses, all crowded so closely together that you can't see the streets from the air. They're quite charming, and it's easy to see why, in an age of marauding invaders, people chose to build their towns where it would be easier both to watch for enemies and to defend against them. I do sometimes wonder why they haven't expanded down to the valley floor. But it's only been 75 years since their last war, hasn't it? During this year's Paris-Nice, we saw for the first time one of these steep hills that had at the top not a town, but a single lovely stuccoed chapel. That's all the room there was at the top of this particular hill. And the chapel was smaller than our meeting house. I would guess maybe half the size. It's hard to tell from the outside. At one end of the chapel, there was a door with a window on each side. The other end of the building was built like this. Here's the granite cliff. Here's the wall of the chapel. Exactly right there at the edge. There was very little land around the chapel, And the helicopter had to make 3 circuits before I could see the trail that led up to the door. Not a path. I'm talking a trail, a narrow, single-track, steep dirt trail. And this is not an old, abandoned chapel. It is well maintained. People still climb that rough trail to attend weekly worship services. And that made me wonder, how might the faith of those parishioners be shaped by the travail and the effort of that climb? How might their faith differ from ours, who only have to walk casually up our broad, accessible path to the door? Does a challenging pre-church mountain climb breed a fiercer, more ferocious faith? I don't have an answer. Our Puritan forefathers were pretty firm, as is clearly demonstrated by the records of our own first minister, the implacable Nathaniel Stone, who served this church for 55 years. I just wonder what we've lost or gained in the 323 years since our church was founded in harsher, more challenging times. We may not have to climb a mountain to get here, and love is our doctrine. Yet I wonder, could our love be fiercer? Could we be more determined, more rigorous in our efforts to change the world? Could we approach our peaceful meeting house filled with the flush of exertion, of meeting a challenge, and take that energy and strength into our work? As we light our chalice today, let's think about that. If we had to struggle up a mountain to get here, how might our efforts to turn love into justice be different? Blessed be.
I invite you to join in this little light of mine. You can rise and body your spirit. And I think you probably know this one. I'll feed you the lines. If you don't know it, it's 118 in the gray hymnal. But if many of you know it, you can let your voices sing out. This little light of mine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go. Building up a world. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Please remain standing for our affirmation. And let's switch sides. This time, this side will do the Roman type, and this side will do the italic type. We believe in love. Love is the doctrine of this church. We believe in truth. The quest for truth is our sacrament. We believe in helping others, and service is our prayer. We believe in the sacredness of life, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
I invite the children and youth forward, or whoever normally comes forward. We do it differently everywhere. I invite everyone who normally comes forward to come on forward. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Aaron. I use he, him pronouns, and I am from First Parish in Framingham, and I bring greetings and hellos from the children there. They have names like William and Abigail and Veronica and Amanda and Dante and Emiliano, and I will tell them that you said hello, if that's okay as well. So, I invite you to just look around the space that we're in. What are some of the things that you see? Anybody want to share? Yeah.
I see little posters up on the
Okay, there are little posters up there, the tapestries that say hope, service, and love. Great. What else? What else do you see? Yeah. You see posters as well? Great. What else do you see? Anybody else? Yeah. The clock. Very good. What else do you see? Oh, those symbols up there, those look like they're carved out of wood. From my vantage point, I see an organ, I see windows, I see a lectern, I see a vase that is holding flowers, and you know, somebody made each one of these things, or many people. The story that I have to tell you is from, it's called A Lamp in Every Corner, and it is about a church in Transylvania, or Romania, that I hear you have a partner church as well. Is that correct? They probably don't know, but you do, yes. And now you know as well. So this is the story of Arpad and Zara. Zara is a little girl, and Arpad is helping his family build this church, helping the village. And there was a village kind of like this one that we're in right now, and they decided that they needed a church. So they decided that they needed to build walls, and they had carpenters building the walls. They needed windows, so they had glaziers making windows. The inside of these churches are beautiful. They're painted in gold and red and blue, so they had someone paint everything. And they had a blacksmith who made different lamps, or the blacksmith made hooks that were hung around the outside of the church, or on the walls around the church. And Zara looked as everything was ready to be opened for the first time. Can you imagine what this space would have looked like the first time before it opened as well? So Zara said, but everything is so dark in here, and what goes on these hooks? And Arpad, her father, said, well, Zara, you know that little lamp that we have that sits in our home? Everyone else in this family has that, everyone else in this village, rather, has that same lamp. Now go and ring the bell in the hallway, and you will see what happens. So Zara ran into the hallway and started pulling on the bell rope. And then Arpad said, look outside. And Zara saw that everyone was coming with their lamp from their home. And they hung them on the hooks, on the walls, on the inside of the church. And Arpad said, Zara, you see, everyone has helped make a part of this church, but it's really the people that make this church what it is. And that is my story for today. It is so good to have met all of you, if just for a little while, and I'll be sure to tell everyone else that I know hello at my congregation. So now I believe we are singing the children out to their program. As we say in my congregation at the beginning of this time, this is the time that we set aside for rest and renewal, for contemplation, meditation, and prayer. So let us enter into that time. O Spirit of life and love, named and unnamed, but who calls each one of us by our true first name, which is beloved, we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for the people who make this congregation what it is. We give thanks for the food in our bellies and the roofs over our head. We know that it did not have to be this way. We also know that in our community and in our communities at large, there are people living with illness, people who are lonely, people who are mourning, people who live with addiction. May we each have the courage to reach out to those who need a helping hand, and may we also have the courage to say, I need help. Our world is beautiful, and it is also broken. So let us each be love's hands out in the world, working to bend the arc of the universe towards justice, to bring more peace to all of the war-torn parts of our world, whether they are far away or whether they are in our own communities. And because of the fact that we are human, we are also beautiful, and sometimes our relationships can become frayed. Our relationships with others, our authentic selves, and the mystery beyond all understanding. We can put up barriers and walls. May we each be reminded that we are loved and lovable not in spite of these imperfections, but because of them. And there is always time to say, I'm sorry. How can I do better? I say these words and do all things for love's sake. May it be so. Let us now enter into a time of silence so that you might rest, pray the prayers of your own hearts silently, or simply do nothing for 1 minute. You have permission to set aside those to-do lists. Our first reading, which I decided on last night, so it's not in the order of service, is The Unitarian Society of Germantown by Kathleen Sheeter Bonanno. The church is a big wooden boat. Dave and I are in the corner as the raindrops patter, then slash through the dark outside. Hold on tight, says the kindly moon face of the minister. But we can smell our own sweat. We roll our eyes and moan and grapple for position. One by one, the others press their bodies against us until finally we tire and lean into their patient animal breath to wait it out together.
I invite you to join in the gray hymnal, hymn number 345. With joy we claim the growing light.
Each week, we have the practice of splitting our offering. Half of what is collected goes to the work of First Parish Brewster, and the other half goes to a worthy organization nominated by members of this congregation. Today's split plate is with Cape Wellness Collaborative. Founded in 2014 by local musician Sarah Swain, the Cape Wellness Collaborative provides integrative wellness therapies, including acupuncture, massage, energy work, and nutritional counseling, most of which are not covered by health insurance. For people facing cancer, all free of charge. Cape Wellness Collaborative covers the costs of these therapies and connects clients with local practitioners who provide them. There are several ways you can give today. You can text to give, the number is in the order of service, or you can donate on our website, or you can make a check out to First Parish Brewster UU. Please note in the memo line, split plate. However you choose to give today, thank you for your generosity. The offering will now be gratefully accepted.
Winter is the oldest season, but quietly beneath the snow, seeds are stretching out and reaching, faithful as the morning glow. carry nothing but what you must. Let it go, shake off the dust. Today is now, tomorrow beckons. Keep practicing resurrection. Waters wide and open wide. Just don't walk when you can fly. When justice seems in short supply, let beauty be your only guide. Prayer I pray at evening tide, all left done be put aside. When forgiveness is hard to find, help me at least to be kind. Yeah, lean in toward the light. Well, lean in toward the light. Well, lean in toward the light. Well, lean in. Lean in toward the light. Lean in toward the light.
Our reading today we will share in two voices. It is titled What to Tell the Children by Rachel Kahn.
Tell them that this is the great awakening. Tell them that we humans have made some huge mistakes, and that's how we now find ourselves in this tenuous place. Teach them that hate is the poison.
Teach them that love is the remedy, that it is better to be readied for what comes next, even if the revelation is painful. Tell them that this is the paradigm shift, that the old is collapsing on itself, that this death rattle is simply a temper tantrum, the last gasp of a dying Goliath.
Remind them of how they get wild when they are most tired and then pass out. That this is what it's about, that this is what is happening to a decrepit and ineffective empire. Tell them that everything is not okay, and knowing that is okay. Tell them that pretending that what is unacceptable is fine is what got us to this sick and dysfunctional spot on the timeline.
Apologize for any prior attempts to teach them denial. Tell them that you did not see desire for comfortable numbness. Express that you had the best of intentions, that you were working within a broken system where few benefited at the expense of many, that you laid low, kept to the status quo, obediently played your role, but those days are over, because now you know better.
Tell them that they have no responsibility to follow someone blindly based solely on a title. Teach them to practice discernment. Tell them authority and respect must be earned and are not inherently deserved. Teach them that there are good people and bad people from every background, ethnicity, and belief system, that they must align themselves with kindness, that there is no more time for divisiveness.
You tell them that just because something is legal, that doesn't mean it's right. You tell them to rise up and fight. Remind them of all the lawful atrocities committed in the sick and twisted history of this violent country, that Rosa Parks righteously broke a law and the world took notice, that Harriet Tubman is our modern-day Moses, that women would not be allowed to vote, and no one would have proposed another notion if the blessed rebels hadn't taken a stand.
Tell them love will win this war, but only if we remember that love is not just one unending cuddle puddle, but fierce as a mother bear protecting her cubs. Tell them that although this existence is damaged beyond repair, they must not despair. There is possibility, and we willingly and willfully open ourselves to new ways of being, because the old way is not working, has never worked, and the world deserves better, and we are worth it.
Tell them that they are not free while another suffers under enslavement. Teach them that we are all limbs on one body, and we cannot chop off our own arm without deep suffering. Teach them humility, but also to relearn to retrust their intuition and beg their forgiveness for unintentionally misleading them previously. Tell them that their gifts are useful. Tell them that they are beautiful. Tell them that they are the truth. Here ends our reading. So before I begin my sermon, I want to thank your minister for giving me the chance to share this sermon with you. Whenever I guest preach, which these days is not too often, I do so with deep gratitude. It is a way that we make manifest our shared collegial covenant to respect and support our colleagues. It is how we become a little bit more connected to other Unitarian Universalists. So I bring you greetings from the First Parish in Framingham. And I noticed when I came in that we have a name shared on our list of ministers. John Ogden Fisher was the minister of Framingham, as well as Groton, as well as here. So that is wonderful. And I also heard that John Nichols served as interim minister at both of our congregations. And also I saw Kim Crawford Harvey's name over there. Kim was my preaching professor in seminary. An interconnected web indeed. And I also think it's my special duty to remind you that you, the First Parish of Brewster, are very lucky to have Reverend Jessica as your minister. I think I really got to know her last summer at General Assembly, or maybe a little bit before. We text on a regular basis because we're both a part of an online trivia league. And we are both very mediocre at best. We're together in that. We only answer about 1 or 2 trivia questions correctly out of 5. But even though we're kind of mediocre at trivia, Jessica is one of the best at ministry, I think. So be sure to express your appreciation when she returns from parental leave. So I have long been fascinated with the maritime history here on Cape Cod, and specifically the United States Life-Saving Service and the Lighthouse Service. We're going to go deep here. This is one of my nerdy passions, so just be warned. In 1915, the Life-Saving Service merged with the Revenue Cutter Service to become the Coast Guard, and then a little bit later on, in 1939, those two organizations merged to become the modern-day Coast Guard. Growing up, my family had a family cottage close to Nauset Light in Eastham since about 1938 or so, right between where Nauset Light and the Three Sisters lighthouses sit. I heard tales growing up of my grandmother meeting the lighthouse keeper of Nauset Light. Soon I became too also enamored with the stories of the men of the Coast Guard, reading the book that Bernie Weber wrote about the Pendleton rescue off the coast of Chatham in 1952, where a large tanker split in two in a storm and 32 men were rescued on a very small motorized wooden lifeboat, which during the summer you can still see at Rock Harbor in Orleans. This story became the focus of a 2016 movie starring Chris Pine. These are the stories that shaped who I was as a child. They were the sacred stories and the metaphors. There was something that captured my attention about these stoic men, at least I'm thinking that they were stoic, who risked their life to save people they never met, and the stoic people who kept beacons burning so that people they would never meet got their way to safety. I wanted so desperately to become a lighthouse keeper when I grew up. It seemed like the ideal job. My preteen heart was broken when I learned that all but one lighthouse had been automated. I learned that the only way that you could make sure that the lights kept burning was to enlist in the Coast Guard, and it seemed like most of their time was spent in drug enforcement, and very little time was spent maintaining aids to navigation. But this metaphor of being a lighthouse keeper has informed my own ministry. Indeed, it's on the stole I'm wearing today that my mother presented to me when I was ordained. I think our very existence as a progressive faith depends on how we answer the question, who are we exactly? What is our mission out in the world? So I offer some simple metaphors. Are you, as a community of faith, a bunker, an oasis, or are you a beacon? Now, inevitably, someone will come up to church after and say, well, we're none of the above, we're a church, and you're right on that count. Or someone else will come and say, well, we're a combination of these, and that's also true. Sometimes lighthouses put off the coast ended up being sanctuaries and bunkers as well. Several men survived a glass block getting blown out of the Cleveland Ledge Lighthouse during a hurricane. That was a beacon and a bunker in that time. And I found over the years that Unitarian Universalist congregations use the first two words, bunker and oasis or sanctuary, frequently to describe themselves. And perhaps we could use the word beacon to describe ourselves a little bit more. I hear folks describe their church as a bunker when they feel that they live in an area where their progressive faith, and indeed who they are, is often under siege by the outside world. The congregation I served in Texas sometimes thought of itself in this way, or they might have described themselves as a blueberry in the tomato soup of Texas. To borrow a phrase from Governor Rick Perry. They feel that they are out of place and always have to fight for their voices to be heard in the public square. When they do talk about their beliefs, people might feel that others are trying to poke holes in their beliefs, as if to say that they don't matter. The congregation as a bunker serves as a way to protect those inside of it. When the congregation is a bunker, the folks inside get anxious and uncomfortable when anything might compromise the safety of that shelter. My congregation that I served in Lawrence, Kansas also felt similarly. Other times people use the metaphor of church as a sanctuary or an oasis. And I should note that I'm not referring to churches participating in the sanctuary movement, working with individuals who are undocumented. The reason is clear. Many religious traditions deny inherent worth and dignity to many people. Faith traditions might marginalize women, people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, people who are divorced or who lived with limited mobility, vision, or hearing, people who live with addiction. And some in those traditions might choose to leave them, seeking a place where they can live their lives, where they can be their true selves. These churches serve an important purpose because religion can be damaging to people. Again, there is a fear of change as seen in the bunker congregations. There is also a desire to say in these congregations that we can believe whatever we want because we don't want to offend people. You can't believe whatever you want in Unitarian Universalism, though. We do allow for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, but I already said it, it has to be responsible as well. We cannot change by remaining who we are. We also affirm and promote our Unitarian Universalist principle about encouraging spiritual growth. Bunker and Oasis congregations serve a vital purpose. But progressive communities of faith would do well both for themselves and for the world if we embraced the congregation as a beacon. Lighthouses were first used for navigational purposes way before GPS was a thing. And today, some might argue that lighthouses are irrelevant. Lighthouses serve as museums. They serve as things that we preserve. Lighthouses have several characteristics that I think congregations would do well to embrace. Lighthouses, to be effective, must be built where they can be useful, which also means a little bit of risk. Cape Cod, as you well know, is an outstretched arm of sand, which in several thousand years, give or take, will no longer exist. Lighthouses are built on high areas so their light can shine a long way out to sea. And of course, to guide fellow journeyers along their way. And the technology used to illumine lighthouses in the year 2023 is very different than what was used in the 1700s. Some of the first lighthouses used whale tallow candles with small mirrors behind them. There would be a rack of about 20 or 12 to 15 of them in each lantern room. However, a candle shining on its own, or even an oil lamp or an electric light bulb, does not shine effectively. A physicist from France, Auguste Jean Fresnel, invented the Fresnel lens. And what these lamps do, these lenses do, is they direct the light shining from the top and the bottom into a beam which can be used by mariners and sailors. This redirection and focus allows the light to shine brighter. And these lenses were built in different sizes depending on the desired range of the lighthouse. The smallest being the size of a table lamp, the largest being about 8 feet tall. Highland Light or Cape Cod Light had a first order Fresnel lens, a very tall one. And I'm guessing that Stage Harbor Light had probably a 5th order lens, but that's really getting nerdy there. Fresnel lenses not only added useful range, but they added the ability to differentiate what the light signal looked like. This was noticeable because as you look up the coast of Cape Cod, you needed to differentiate which lighthouse looked like what, which is why you had 2 in Chatham, 3 in Nauset, and 1 at Highland. These lenses were difficult to maintain. And so over the years, some were replaced with arrow beacons that you would often see at airports like we currently have at Nauset Light. Others were replaced with light-emitting diode arrays, and wow, this is really super nerdy. But there are 80 Fresnel lenses still in use across the lighthouses in our country. Lighthouse illumination technology has changed over the years, and I think the change was embraced. Changes to the way in life of the church, too. It's important to embrace that change as well. The point of all of this technology is that it allows the light to be focused on creating a beam which guides travelers on their way. In some ways, I think this is what mission statements and strategic planning do. They focus the energy and the vision of a congregation and the imagination of a congregation into a useful form. Lighthouses live into their mission by shining their light. Churches, too, can be used as beacons to help people orient themselves and figure out how to move throughout the world. Now, here's the thing. I think there are many former beacon congregations that are still operating with 19th century technology or with a 19th century way of being. Most ships don't actually need lighthouses to navigate their way throughout the world. They use radar or GPS systems to find their way. Goods are now shipped by planes as well. But in times of stress, they are still useful. Adaptation must take place. We must find ways to adapt the things that congregations do well as well. Feeding those who need to be fed, clothing those who are naked, providing places of connection, providing a place to interpret religion through our specific camera angle. To be sure, there are many lighthouse churches that are doing good things out in the world, like feeding families, creating community in a divided world, collecting necessary items for people experiencing homelessness, providing comprehensive sexuality education in a world where dangerous misinformation is running rampant, affirming the worth and dignity of transgender people. Beacon congregations must embrace the key part of their mission to spread liberal religious values of the inherent worth and dignity, and that compassion and equity are all crucial. They must use their spaces to become brave spaces, not safe spaces, places where we are called to be our best selves. I hope that we continue to embrace change. I know that you as a congregation, because you're a congregation that has so many people in the sanctuary, this is wonderful. It's so good to see everyone. And so good to have folks joining online as well. You as a congregation have embraced a lot of change during this time of COVID-19, and I hope that you continue to embrace change. The Fresnel lenses that have been removed from our lantern rooms, now we have this imperative to embrace new ways of being and new ways of sharing our light in the world. I sometimes think of ministry as lighthouse keeping the lights going and the mechanisms working correctly so that all who need a beacon can find their way throughout the world. One of my enduring metaphors about ministry, as I said, is that of the lighthouse keeper. Lighthouses and beacons were positioned along the shoreline to help mariners and sailors orient themselves, to help prevent them from going into dangerous shoals. Of course, there is something useful also about remembering that lighthouse keepers did not define the station. They simply kept it lit during the time that they were stationed there. And when the time came to move on, they did. They were only lighthouse keepers for the time being. So, what kind of church are you? I'm a big fan of the church as the beacon, maybe because it's how I get to be a lighthouse keeper in some way, but also because our world so desperately needs our message, so desperately needs our values. Travelers and journeyers need some direction in life. So my friends gathered here, what kind of a light do we have that shines out into the world? How are our beliefs a saving message, a balm to the weary? And then how do we focus that so that we can shine as far as possible? May you be blessed and be a blessing to this world. May it be so, and amen.
I invite you to take your teal hymnal and turn to 1028, 1028. Rise in body or spirit. We're going to sing The Fire of Commitment.
And so as you leave this friendly place, let us take the light of love out into the world and use it to brighten our pathways. And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always and the light hold us always. Amen, and go in peace.
I forgot to go down.